remember, because when I was doing some freelancing on Slam, this was 2019, 2020. I remember WSLAM. This is when it started to pop up on my feed all the time. And I was
Yeah.
probably one of the early followers. Like, I remember when it didn't even have 10K followers. I've been following it for a
OG,
minute.
OG.
Yeah, yeah. And I just remember it sort of popping up or whatever. And then to how this podcast came together, you were on some sort of panel or whatever that popped up on my feed. And then
Mhm.
I clicked on you and then the other person, I forget who it was, forgive me, but whatever. And this was like the bat signal, Dex. You're gonna laugh when I say this. But clicked on Camille's profile, read whatever, Florida State alum, creative director, WSLAM. I was like, oh shit, I know WSLAM. Puerto Rican flag. I was like, oh, what? Right?
You're like,
I was like,
wait, was the shock because there was a Puerto Rican creative director? Because I would understand that. A shock would be understandable to me in this
people
space.
listen. And look, Slam is one of the places like that I've done work with that I've actually really enjoyed, right? And we've talked about that. We've picked them up here on this podcast. But a lot of places are not going to have the balls to take a chance on somebody with that background, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was very important to see. But Camille, just when did you get the idea for sort of creating WSLAM and pushing that forward? Because I had heard an interview recently, and I'm gonna bring this to wrestling. Sorry, Dex. Tony Khan is the person in charge of AEW. They had asked him about like, hey, like how did you come up with this idea? And he's like, I've been formulating this in my head for like 10 or so years already. It just
Mhm.
happened to be the time. So was this something that you had always envisioned uh in this space for like 10, 12 years or as long as you can remember? Or did this just come out, be like, yo, we need something like this for our culture, for women in particular, in basketball, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was an interesting transition, right? Because like I was technically at my first gig out of college, right? Like I'm in grad school, so I had done some jobs, but nothing that's like, this is your money, this is how you're living, this is everything. And that was at the WNBA, and I was working on their social team. Um, and while I was there, I was really fortunate that unlike the NBA side, there's a lot of freedom there to really use my vision, right? Yes, there's a lot of red tape, you still have to get things approved, but they were really open in letting me kind of try out what I thought. And as with that freedom, I started formulating this vision for what I feel like women's basketball coverage should look like.
Mm,
Unfortunately, that at the league itself is not the place for it, if I'm
Mm.
honest, more because the league itself is just about celebrating the game, and that's what they are meant to do, and everyone else is meant to do the rest. That the same way the
yeah,
NBA is. The NBA doesn't do, the NBA focuses on the game itself and lets everyone do the rest.
yeah. It's a PR
And
arm, basically.
exactly. And so I, I hadn't thought about leaving the NBA, the WNBA, if I'm honest. I was like, you know what, I have a voice here. I'm in front of the real key decision makers. I'm able to, push things forward. And Adam Figman found me through actually an interesting connection that I had worked with someone at the NBA, was friends with the founder of League Fits. And they knew they wanted to do a women's basketball brand. They knew they wanted to do that. So I think they were really looking for the right person to implement it. So it was funny because it's like, it wasn't something that I'd been thinking of forever, but they thought of it. And I had already been thinking about my own vision. And so it kind of came together at one time, at one period, because it's like, hey, we don't want to tell you what to do, but we are going to give you the platform to do whatever you want to do without all the red tape of the WNBA and all those
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
So it was really a fortuitous moment, I would say, just because it allowed my vision, like that was brewing so many ideas that I couldn't do, that I was like itching to do. And then, this was the platform to be able to do them. And not only that, but I know the history Slam has in basketball. I mean, I have had magazines from way back when, and I knew the hold and how cemented it was in the basketball world, and how authentic it was too. And I really appreciated that about it. And I think for me, I always wanted to connect, especially when I was at the league, art and basketball. And, that's exactly what Slam has always done. So it was just a perfect, blessing in disguise, like something that came out of the blue, but, a perfect match for me to be at and help grow this brand now.
How much did you think about, Camille, when you got this opportunity that
Mhm.
I'm the person stepping into this, I'm the creative director, I'm a woman of color. I'm a Hispanic woman. I'm a Puerto Rican woman doing this. I think sometimes when you're the first doing something, especially stepping into space, it doesn't really grab you in that way until you sit back later and look at it. And I'm sure now you've had some time to look at it, but just what were your thoughts about that, being the first person doing this, being a woman of color, particularly a Puerto Rican woman in this space? I'm sure there's a lot of pride in that, because you said that's how Puerto Rican people feel about things, trying to master short energy.
We're very prideful. We're extremely prideful.
Extremely
that's
prideful
with the island, for real.
Yeah, and I think in all that, I would assume there has to be a great deal of pride in what you're doing. You're hearing it from other people. You hear how Bryan bigs you up on this. Just what are your thoughts about that? About being the first creative director and being a Puerto Rican woman doing this?
It's funny. I didn't think I was ready. I actually turned down the job the first time.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
More because I was so nervous. One, I didn't play the game myself. So I felt like, you know what, maybe this is better fit for someone that's, honestly more, not authentic, because I am authentically cemented in basketball and women's basketball. That's not it. It's just more of like, someone that lived it. So I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. Like, I don't know if this is right. So I turned it down. And I think it was also a little bit of fear that kind of, caused me to do that. Luckily, I had some really great friends around me. And not only that, but Slam, kept pushing. And even though I turned them down, they came back and said, okay, well, listen, what do you need to do to make it work?
Wow.
And I had some really great friends around me saying, Camille, like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and really reminding me. I'll never forget. I was at Red Lobster in Times Square, just gotten off the bus, or my friend had just gotten off the bus from Port Authority because she works in Secaucus. And we went to Red Lobster, and I'm sitting there like, yo, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know if this is right. She's like, yo, like she literally shook me. She's like, if you don't do this, like you are going to look back in 5 years and be mad at yourself. And so eating those dope ass biscuits that we all love from Red Lobster.
Can we pause for 1 second? And Greg, bring the camera back here. Camille, what do I have right here?
Yo,
this is a Cheddar Bay biscuit. A Red Lobster cheddar. I literally was eating one right before the podcast started. A Cheddar Bay biscuit. So it could not have been more perfect. Red Lobster. We ain't going to talk too much because Red Lobster is not giving us money for this segment. So we're going to talk about that too much longer.
We don't got to talk about it. But anyway.
The biscuits are dope. Yes.
Yeah, very good biscuits.
They won't give us money for this segment. Feel free. Look, we're open for Dex. We're free agents. We're free agents, Dex. We're open for business.
We're open for business. Sorry, Camille. I had to do that once you said about the biscuits. Go ahead.
No, but yeah, it was just one of those things that the weight of it really weighed on me more than I think. Like I think like now looking back, I realize it, because like I wouldn't have turned that down in my right mind now, but it's just then it's like you feel the weight of everything, right? And I knew stepping in, it was an extremely important role, and I took it seriously from day one. Like I lived, breathed, and ate, slept WSLAM for basically until we hit our 100,000 followers, our first 100,000. And from there I started, trying to have a life a little bit. But no, it was definitely something that I took with seriousness day one, and have since. And because I know how much the space is lacking this type of coverage, and how much this type of coverage helps games grow. You look at the NBA, people are not only attached to the game itself now, it's, oh, what's someone wearing in the tunnel? Oh, what's someone listening to? Oh, what rapper is this person with? So there is it's like it is, and that's how you draw in audiences that may not be basketball fans. Because here's the thing, when you talk about women's basketball, for the most part, if you're a true hooper, you like women's basketball. Like if you're a real basketball lover, but that the purest form of basketball is women's basketball. So you love it and you respect it and you appreciate that game. And so the basketball community was never the one I was, reaching for, which yes, we got them. That was always going to be. And also, mind you, Slam has covered women's basketball since the early days. I mean, Shamika Holdsclaw was on the cover in '98.
I remember that.
I mean, there's punk sections with Tina Charles, with Candace Parker. You looking all the way back and there's coverage. So there's always been coverage. But I knew that stepping into this, I had to, take it to that next level and really try and attract new audiences. And that's been the goal, and finding ways to, connect these humans and well-rounded individuals with fans across the world. So the weight of it definitely was hard at the beginning, but I feel like I've learned to manage it
I had to
as
ask.
time has gone.
I had to ask this too, Camille, because I think one of the things about slam and the brand of slam in general, I think a lot of people would agree with is, people remember these iconic covers, right? The covers are what draws people out. So now you coming in as creative director, I have to imagine some of the pressure was, these covers got to be dope. We got to have these covers with these women looking real dope, right? And how much, because just for people to understand what you do as creative director, how much thought and input goes into what we see when we look at WSLAM, whether online or physical, just how much thought of the presentation of everything and the pressure that goes into that.
Definitely. I think, and when I arrived, mind you, they were still doing one women's cover a year. They had done Maya Moore the year prior to me joining. And then the year I joined, they hadn't done one yet. And I knew right then and there we had to get out of that cycle. We can't be in this one a year mindset, first of all. So I knew that pressure was on. I went into my first cover shoot was with Liz Cambage and Asia Wilson, basically blind. They were like, here's a shooter. You got the photographer, Atiba Johnson, who's shot over 90 covers now of Slam. He's like the OG of the OG. Thank God he was there, because if I had to like fully creative direct the shoot, I don't know how it would have gone. I'd never done anything like that. And he was just phenomenal, and Asia and Liz are just incredible themselves. But yeah, I knew in the beginning it was going to be. So a lot of my first experience, especially with that first cover, came in design work and working with our art director, Lester Padilla, who's incredible. And Susan Price Thomas, who kind of heads up she's the managing editor of the magazine, really working closely with everyone. Dennis Page, who's an icon of slam, and working with everyone to find ways to, not only make these covers like, here's someone in a uniform, which sometimes kind of turns into what it is on the NBA side, because you get 5 to 10 minutes and you get the shot and you're good, into really like real pieces. And so now it's definitely developed. I think we still were in that uniform mentality. We've started styling. We've started really thinking creatively about these covers, going into the shoots and going out of the shoots, and what the story is we're trying to tell. But yeah, it's definitely something that that pressure is hard. And I think we've made a lot of changes. There's more to come. But I'm really excited about the work we've done thus far.
And the first ever WSLAM magazine.
Yes,
like
I have
entire
it with me.
an entire magazine, which I believe you tweeted out sold out in 24 hours or something crazy like that. Like it's a fantastic cover. Diamond DeShields, Arike Ngumbawale, and Betnijah Laney on the front. And like when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is an enormous step, because it's an entire it's Slam being like, all right, look, we're gonna do an entire magazine.
Yep.
Based off of not just women in basketball, but also the brand of WSLAM, and it makes a lot of sense. And WSLAM doesn't just cover like the pros either, because I've seen, this is where I've first seen like Haley Van Lith, Paige Beckers, like I've seen them all on like WSLAM first, and then eventually it goes onto the Slam High School page, and then the Slam, the big Slam page. Like there's a progression system sort of there, but the first cover, like tell us about the process of that. Because I know you've been very busy with that.
Yes.
Over the last several weeks, and probably even longer than that.
Definitely. I think I knew I wanted to do this. I wanted to be careful and not do it like every other slam issue. I knew this was special in itself. So, when we started ideating what this would look like, my big concept I wanted to be the through line is, all right, we've had 25 years of WNBA success, the longest withstanding women's professional basketball league in the world. And so how do we pay tribute to the 25 years and the hundreds of women that have played in the league in those years, while looking forward to the next 25? And Betnijah, Diamond, and Arike kind of in their own respective ways represent, I would say, the next 25 years of faces we're going to be seeing, of superstars, right? You know, Benija is a player that basically was told all you're going to be is this defensive stopper, was waived, picked up, waived, picked up, waived. And then look at her now. She led the league in scoring last year. And then this year is, you know, the first option in New York City. That's not an easy task. I mean, Diamond represents a player whose journey, she was a superstar in high school, right? She's on that social media wave. So is Enrique. And so her journey has been really beautiful to watch. And I don't think it's even over yet at all. But that, you know, she's had a career that, you know, she's coming into Chicago and finding her way, right? But also she's such an influential person in the fashion space, which is what I loved so much about the draw for her. She's starting to style herself. And I think that's something so special. And Enrique is Enrique. She's a bucket. She's a Kobe disciple. We saw her hit those 2 shots at Notre Dame. We've seen her do what she does. And so I think, again, they just represent the next chapter. And so when we talked about, you know, not only these 3 women, it's how do we style it? I wanted it to look like a TLC album cover. Like that was my, like, give me the Fugees, give me TLC, give me, like, I don't, like, it needs to look like an album cover, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I talked to Chloe Jackson, who's a 2019 NCAA champion with Baylor, former WNBA player, she actually retired to go full-time styling. She styled this, and we talked a lot of denim. She was incredible. She did her thing. And then Raven B. Verona, who just shot the Met Gala, the VMAs, Teen Vogue cover with Natalia Bryant. I knew she was a superstar. She's Beyonce and Jay-Z's like former tour photographer, I'm pretty sure. I mean, she's just killer. And the first woman of color to shoot a cover for us. So it was a really special, shoot through and through. And really, I wanted to make every piece of this matter. And so, I think that was the big vision we had going into it. And then afterwards, Lester Padilla, I mean, again, did his incredible work on the artwork. We went with this, you know, album cover, lovers and friends announcement type of old school vibe. And he went crazy on that. So, everyone who was a part of this project, it was what made it so great. So it was really, really fun putting it together.
See, I love hearing that. I love hearing the thought process behind it, Camille, and how you were trying to hit different things. 'Cause I think you guys really nailed it with that cover for sure.